Is that fine? I looked like I was like to the left. There we go. Sweet, sweet, sweet. I do. I'm drinking Stag Junior tonight. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was chasing. I've been like I really want to do some of that. I have not been to a distillery yet. I was considering taking an extra day off before this year's draft to try and get up to one of them on the way, but we'll have to see. Yeah, that, it sounds like Zach and Waldrop will be joining. I got nothing to do but watch basketball, man. So I'm good. Yeah, freaking Eastern Conference has not been exciting. I guess the Milwaukee series. Yeah, yeah. The Cavs are going to be scary in the next few years. They've got a lot of talent. I don't know what their draft capital looks like though. To get, so I'm guessing they gave up some decent stuff to get Mitchell. Yeah. What's going on, man? Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a new name that has something to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. Gonna give you a highlight of where this discussion's going. I've got some. I watch SEC games here and there. I watch Notre Dame stuff. Um, there are definitely some players when you get into the Big 12 or even the Pac 12 for me that I'm not other than guys like that are on USC or UCLA. Don't know a ton. Um, yeah, I mean everything in college football does these days. In all honesty, I'm married into it. I'm now an Ole Miss season ticket holder, which is a weird thing to say. Hour and a half. It's not bad. And Oxford's actually a really cool college town. It's got a very eclectic vibe, very different from the rest of the state of Mississippi, and tons of good restaurants. Honestly, like we love going down there out of the season when, especially like if the Old Miss is on break and there aren't a ton of kids around. It's a very chill, like long weekend getaway without having to go anywhere, like go far. So and we're lucky. Liz's family has a little bit of condo down there, so we have a place to crash. We don't have to worry about trying to get a hotel or anything. Oh, okay. Well, can you hear me?
You can. All
That's weird because
right.
I haven't had a problem hearing you at all.
Yeah, so he should be able to hear me now. Thanks, Zach, for letting me know before we got too far into it. I unplugged my mic at some point and it messed with all my settings. So I should have noticed that in the bottom, though. I wasn't like talking too much. All right,
Yeah.
so now that people can hear me and they got to hear you for a little bit, talking to yourself, we can we can get started with another edition of the LoG Dynasty Cast. Yeah, so today Colin is joining. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it.
Yeah, so we've
I
had
hopefully I have some cool things to say, some interesting points, and I probably will not have as many jokes as Waldrop. So sorry to disappoint everybody there.
not everybody does, so that's okay. No big deal. Um, Yeah, well, yeah. Thanks for joining. You came on once and talked trades with Waldrop, but I'm trying
Yeah,
to go through our league and make sure everybody gets a show if they want it. I feel like there's maybe a few people that don't want their own show. Um, but you can talk about anything. Obviously, Eddie came on and we talked about barbecue for a little bit. So and we didn't have a whole lot to say about his team, but we did talk strategy a little bit, which was fun. So anyway, so we'll get to it. I'm gonna do a few checks here now that I just want to make sure that all my scenes
everything's
are
working,
are working. Yep, all working.
and
So
I can start either way. Whether
yeah.
it's whether you want to go through the mock or
No,
my
I
team
want to
first.
talk. We'll talk strategy. We'll talk about your team. Do you want to show us what you're wearing first, though?
Oh yeah. For all the LeBron fans and my city
Nice,
edition, just to
nice,
you
nice,
know start
nice.
some shit.
Those are some sleek looking jerseys. I do like them.
Uh, yeah, this has probably been my favorite city edition they've done. So they've done some others in the past few years, which are okay, but this actually has some homages to uh, I'd say '90s Memphis rap albums. So if you like went back and looked at like early 3 6 Mafia CD covers and stuff like that, the lettering and stuff like that matches up, and they've got a bunch of other little highlights throughout the. I don't know. There's whole articles out there explaining all the meanings behind some of the symbolism and the stuff. But I definitely had to snag one of these for Christmas this year.
Cool, cool. Well, you're
Still getting used to wearing jerseys. I was never really a jersey guy growing up, and here and there I've picked up a few.
yeah. Oliver and I both have a Franz Wagner jersey, so
Mm,
which is pretty sweet. He's
yeah.
pretty awesome. He's his favorite player. His favorite player was Bol for a while, but then he stopped playing, and so yeah, he switched to Franz, but which is
There
a
you
good
go.
choice
Not
because
a bad. It's
Franz
not
is
a bad
actually a good
favorite player.
player. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, and hopefully he'll be with the Magic for a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think him and Paulo will be. But
Killers.
yeah, it's an exciting season for your Grizz. And it must be a pretty exciting time for Memphis, the city, right
Yeah,
now.
it was. I haven't been to either of the playoff games here, but from what I've heard, they were pretty crazy. I did go out to a restaurant last night that was just jam packed and just people just all in gear and hyped up and having a good time. So we're excited about playoff basketball, and it's we're a little on edge. Obviously, Ja's hurt, with the hand. Decent chance he's back Saturday, from what I'm hearing.
Right.
Just about pain tolerance, but I sent some messages out in the group chat when they announced Steven Adams was out for the remainder of the season. That's a
And
big
Brandon
hurdle for us
Clark.
to get over. That was also huge. So not having I guess I would say I guess they call me number 2-4, and then our starting center is tough, and so definitely going to be a challenge against to try and win it out against the Lakers, and then I actually am very nervous about the Kings if we make it past the Lakers. I think that's going to be a pretty wild series if we end up matched up with them. I actually would rather play Golden State than the Kings at this point,
Nice.
but doesn't look like that's going to happen if we do make it.
Yeah, I mean that's looking ahead. I mean, you guys lost. You
Yeah, no,
guys
this is
lost one at
all
home,
assuming,
so
but
it's
like we're talking about, just the playoffs in general. Like it's all been, Western Conference has been crazy, um, and it's been good basketball to watch. So it's if you talked to me in December, I thought I would have been very happy making it to the conference finals.
yeah.
I'll be very happy to get out of this series.
Yeah. I think that's a
for
fair
private's
statement.
sake.
I feel like the Grizz will be happy to get out of this series. The Dylan Brooks stuff with LeBron is just cracking me up.
Oh, that
Classic
dude!
Dylan
I
Brooks.
I both love and hate Dylan Brooks. If he would just behave like Tony Allen and only shoot like 7 times a game,
Yeah,
he'd be a fantastic player.
I heard
But
someone
their
say
nitrogen
like
jacks up.
I've never heard somebody like chirp as much for like a 30% 3-point shooter like
Oh yeah,
after they hit
yeah.
a
I mean,
three. You know.
and he like in the past few years, he's had some streaks where he's been a really good shooter, but it just as more people have kind of taken over the offense, other than John Jaron, Baines really come up, and now we've got even Conchard's a pretty solid shooter,
The
and
guy
Clark.
who gets like turned away at the stadium or something. It's like
Oh,
you're not a real basketball
he's
player.
my
You look
next
like a dude
jersey.
off
Like I
the street.
Yeah, he's wild. Like he's poor man's Alex Caruso, and it's fantastic. But it's been a good time.
Well,
Anytime the Grizzlies are in the playoffs is a good one.
so we're here to talk football though. So, but I did have to get
Talk
your
about the High Point Showboats.
yeah. We got to talk about your team first of all. High Point Showboats. So I guess before we start, we're my goal with these is just to talk about our league and give people kind of a platform to talk about whatever they want here. So
Yeah.
we can go whatever direction you want, and I'd love to talk about your team. I feel like yeah, I want to know about the name. Where'd you get the name High Point
So
Showboats? Everyone wants to know that.
High Point is the area of Memphis that Liz and I live in. It's a
Ah,
neighborhood. So it's actually like you're familiar with it. You've been around it, with your travels down here to see
right.
family and stuff. And then Showboats is actually it's old and new USFL name. So in the 80s, when the USFL was first around, Memphis had a team, and they were the Memphis Showboats, which has to do with the paddle boats going up and down the river. Um, and so that team collapsed, obviously, when the USFL collapsed. We actually had some pretty big names on the team. Who's the defensive tackle? I think he ended up playing in the NFL for the Eagles. That was around forever. Or maybe it's the Pack. I don't know. There's some I can't remember because I wasn't. I was barely born then. But we had some pretty famous players
Reggie
that went on
White.
the NFL. But Reggie White, there you go,
Okay. All
for Green
right.
Bay. And so he was with the Showboats. My parents had a bar growing up, and then we had a bunch of old Showboats memorabilia on the walls and stuff like that. So it kind of just fit. I was like, we're going to be the Showboats.
I honestly
Uh,
didn't expect this thorough of an answer for something as simple as your
but
fantasy football team name.
but uh, but no, kind of as we mentioned, I'm currently working uh, on Marvin Harrison Jr. related puns for a name. We're gonna
hmm.
have to see where that goes,
Okay.
um,
Okay. Okay. Marvin
to kind of give you a
Harrison
hint of
Jr.
where this is
names.
gonna
I
go.
think you're gonna have some stiff competition with Lewis for that pick.
Oh, I definitely will, and it's definitely gonna probably take some roster management to get there. I've had people hit me up. I mean, all off season trying to kind of get at some of my assets, and I haven't pulled the trigger yet. Mostly because I feel like several of my assets can get me more down the line at this point. Obviously, I got rid of Kyler
All right,
last season,
wait. Before we go into
and then
this, let's show people your team.
yeah.
So let's go to the power rankings. Let's take a look. You're sixth here, sixth out of. So you can go into sleeper, paste in um,
Mm-hmm.
your rankings, and you can or your league from the sleeper website, and you can get these power rankings. So High Point Showboats. This is your team. This is a 14 team Dynasty League, half PPR, and you earned. I think is a fair way to say you earned the 102 this year.
Yeah.
That's your pick. So yeah, you were talking about, but go ahead, talk about I think there's some really interesting players to talk about here. So what
Oh
you
yeah. So last year after the draft, I felt okay about my team, but didn't think I had a contender. I thought I had a team that would probably, going after possibly after this draft, depending on how it went, I might be able to make a run, that sort of thing. But as the season progressed, lost Devontae Williams. Um, Tyler was underproducing, and I honestly wasn't super excited about holding on to him long term. I think my biggest problem is that unlike Lewis, who started, you know, basically tanking day of draft, with the AJ Brown
we
trade,
call that a productive struggle. That's
productive struggle. Okay.
that's what they call
Um,
that. Lewis would like that, you know.
yeah. So like, he kind of had a head start and left me in the dust. I got pretty close to him towards the end, but obviously it wasn't ever going to be enough to get to that 101 for Bijan. And so, throughout the season, I made a couple of moves. Obviously, I traded Kyler for. I would have been happier with a different package that would have included at least a first. But by the time I was ready to trade him, I felt like a lot of assets had already moved around that would have, especially for people that would have been interested. So, a lot of people had already accumulated multiple firsts at that point, and there wasn't as strong of a market for them. So, I kind of just took what I could at that point.
And
And,
to be
ended up
fair,
with all of Waldrop's picks.
this is one quarterback, right? So we need
Yeah.
to make that clear. We're not looking at a team right here, a super flex team, and saying, "Oh, okay, your quarterbacks are Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter, who are actual starters, by the way."
Yeah.
But as of
Which
right
might be a
now,
problem down the line.
um, but continue. Sorry,
Yeah.
your
No,
Kyler
you're
trade.
fine.
So
So in that trade, I ended up with Prescott, who was hurt, and towards as he was coming back, it would actually have been a problem to start him. At least that was my fear. So moved him, got rid of him, and then started moving a few other pieces. So obviously, like at quarterback, I took a major punt in all honesty, and I think that's something that's going to be like folks were asking in the group chat before, like, oh, am I trying to contend this year? No, like without, I'd have to give up way too much to even try and get a quality quarterback. I think it would help me contend, and I don't have the other pieces. Mostly, I feel like a running back to really get me there. So I think my best option going forward is really to continue moving assets, hold on to who I think is going to be, great down the line, but isn't going to overproduce necessarily this season, and then try and get somebody like Martin Harrison Jr., somebody else, another high end receiver or running back, and then possibly try to get somebody like Caleb Williams at quarterback just to try and get me moving there.
hey, you're aiming high. You're like picking the two best players out of the next draft. And I haven't done my
Exactly. So I mean,
2024 research, but like even for someone who hasn't done its 2024 research, I know, and I mean those are the guys. So
yeah. Well, and honestly, I have thought about trying to move into the second half of this first round this year, but I think what I'd have to give up, I don't know. Like I'm not convinced on any of these 2023 quarterbacks is something that is going to be highly productive. I think Bryce Young is an amazing quarterback for college, and he very well could end up being amazing in the NFL, but it's risky at only 5'9", and then C.J. Stroud has a shot, and then the other two guys, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, I just don't think are going to do it, and I don't
very
really want to.
very polarizing players. Yeah,
Oh,
Richardson and
absolutely.
Levis, but
Yeah.
The ceilings are high. You can
Yeah.
see
No.
why the NFL may value these guys as top five,
Oh yeah.
top
No.
10 picks.
Richardson's combine performance was insane, but if
One
you
of the
go back and
greatest
look
of
at
all
his,
time. It's up there.
yeah, I mean, but if you go back and look at his film throwing the ball, in one play he might make something that'll make you go, oh wow, that's an NFL throw, and then the next one he's throwing 15 yards over his receiver's head, and it's just
Mm.
his lack of accuracy, could he be the next Josh Allen plus? There's a chance, but is it something I'm willing to, you know, trade valuable assets on to really try and take a shot at? I just don't think it's worth the. I think I could better spend what I've got available to me to try and take other players and build further.
Yeah, I mean, I think prioritizing wide receivers, running backs, even tight end, maybe in non superflex and one QB is a sound strategy. It
Mm-hmm.
is not. It is pretty nice to have that guy locked up and loaded, at your
Oh,
quarterback
absolutely.
position.
I mean
But
that's kind of what I thought I might have in Kyler
mm,
when I drafted him, but it just his inconsistency, and then I may have undersold him when I traded him during the season, but look now that he's injured, has a new head coach, new offense, all that coming. When he comes back, um, his receiving cores, getting traded away. Like it's just there's a lot going on in Arizona that just you know doesn't make me feel confident. Like I wouldn't feel confident with him as my starting quarterback now if he was my number one QB, even if I was just waiting for him to come off of IR.
that's fair enough. So you've got a conundrum. Okay, so talking about your picks this year, make it more clear. You've got the 102 and the 202, right? So
Mm-hmm.
either one of those, you're 102, you're getting a good player, a great player,
Yeah.
and then to plug into your starting lineup. And if we were to, this is a start 8 league. So when I look at your team, you've got Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams, Debo, TJ Hawkinson, and then the 102, whoever the 102 ends up being, that's what, 6 guys, right? 6
Mm-hmm.
out of the 8. And then you got to figure out quarterback and your flex or your running back too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, your running back 2 right now is Pierre Strong in terms of value.
Who's
Uh,
currently on my
Taxi.
taxi?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you don't have running backs, but that's okay when you're talking about team building and dynasty and you're rebuilding. You don't want running backs. You want to get those players that last, their careers last a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And taking shots at random running backs isn't really your need right now. But quarterback is kind of a glaring need, and if you don't have a good quarterback, you are pretty far behind.
No, absolutely. And there is I don't expect much out of Ritter. I mean, could he be serviceable on an off week? If he's starting, possibly. I think Pickett has a much better chance to actually hit if he does end up hitting. I mean, they're obviously building around him pretty well in Pittsburgh at this point. Some of the trades they've made for wide receivers, and he already has a pretty strong wide receiver core as it is. Blanket, who do they have at tight end? They got
Ritter?
somebody pretty decent. Was that
Did you say Ritter?
no for
Pickett.
Pickett
Pickett.
in Pittsburgh?
Fryermuth.
Yeah, so Fergie's pretty solid. Like, I mean, is he an all star? No. Is he? He's not Travis
I
Kelsey, but
mean,
he's
Pickett's
there for
loaded.
underrun.
He's loaded
Yeah,
with talent. He's got Deontay
yeah.
Pickens. They've just picked up Allen Robinson, Najee Harris, Fryermuth,
My boy
like
Calvin Austin third,
Calvin Austin. Yeah,
pretty big.
he's a burner.
So yeah, I think if if either one of them is going to be successful, I think Pickett's definitely got the best shot of doing that. And who knows? I mean, he could he could blow up and be there for the next 15 years.
He could be. He could be. Yeah, like an average quarterback in one QB isn't gonna hurt you too much, but like a really below average quarterback will. I feel like if you're
Yeah.
you're starting the 28th quarterback in the league, you're losing a lot of points per week to other people. It's a huge loss positionally, and then obviously you're not going to have the. I guess I want to ask about the running backs. So you've got Javonte.
Mhm.
Javonte's hurt, right?
Yep.
And it was a pretty rough injury. And like, are you shopping him in your mind, or are you thinking like, hey, I need to keep this guy because I know
So
you're a
he's one of
Broncos fan.
several players that I haven't shopped. People have asked about. And with him hurt, it's one of those things where I feel like I'd have to sell under what his actual value could end up being. You know, could I? You know, I'm always going to wonder, could I get more for him if he gets a few good solid weeks? You know, gets 15, 18 points a week. You know, here and there. You know, that I feel like that would skyrocket his value, and then I could get way more for him. And that's kind of been my challenge there, especially because with having pushed my timeline along, um, I just don't know if he fits anymore. At least for his prime. Obviously, after our startup draft, I wasn't expecting to necessarily compete year one. So him having that mediocre or slow start first year wouldn't be a problem, and for him to especially hit the ground running in year two, when I thought I'd have some more other players after our second draft and be ready to compete. Obviously, the injury has kind of pushed that back for him, and then getting rid of Kyler for me is really. I mean, I don't expect to compete. Really compete till probably 2025. In all honesty, between having to get a quarterback, time it will take for them to develop, unless I go out and try and trade for a starter that's already been in the league for a while, and the time to stack other running backs and a couple more wide receivers. I think really he's an option to move along. If I get the right offer for him.
Yeah, I mean, if we could look at keep trade cuts value on him right now, play a little game with him. Let's see what Javonte Williams gets you. First of all, there's a couple things you said. I mean, Javonte is what, 23 years old. I mean, he had a brutal
Something like that.
injury, so I feel like the injury is more concerning to me than his age. Like, he should get like 3 or 4 more years
Oh yeah.
of solid production if he's good. But in a one quarterback league, you could trade Javonte Williams for Lamar Jackson. Would you do that right now?
I don't think anyone in our league.
Well, let's just say I'm just saying. I'll keep trade cut on trade calculator.
I mean, not necessarily. Not really, because even with Lamar, I don't have what it takes to compete. So would I trade him for other pieces of equal value to Lamar? Yes, but I'd have to get something else going for that. It doesn't make sense for me to. I think you're the Lamar. No, you had Lamar. You now have Justin Fields.
Yeah, I got Fields.
So who has Lamar now?
Akey does.
Yeah. So is Akey going to give me Lamar Jackson for Javonte? No.
He's trying to win right now.
Exactly.
My favorite part about this pod right now is I get to ask you questions about trades and you immediately have to say something back. It is so beautiful. I
don't put you on stall for 12 hours.
Yeah. Hold on, I got an errand. I'll be back in a few days.
Well, the worst part is, like, especially if we're talking at work, it's hard for, like, I can text and message, but it's hard for me to, like, sit down and, like, pull up, keep trade cut and analyze this and analyze that, and then
I'm just giving you a hard time, and I'm sure others appreciate that, but it's no big deal.
I'm sure Lewis does.
Dynasty is a slow burn, right? So it's okay.
Lewis has gotten so frustrated with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to take your time, and I think that's smart. I think you've been working slowly on this, and so is Justin. Not making crazy moves, and good things are happening. You got some good players on your teams, and obviously, if we're asking you for trades, right? If people are asking for trades, that means you have good players on your team, and like no one's going out of their way to ask me for Deontay Johnson trades right now. Which, I mean, maybe he's undervalued and people should be, but you've got.
I don't know. What do you want for Deontay Johnson?
I don't know. I want to keep him and see what he does this year. That's my plan. It's a buy low FC mantra to buy these guys and see what they turn out to be. And
I mean, I'd throw Claypool at you for Deontay. Like
Chase
Claypool.
The third receiver on the Bears? You want to give me Chase Claypool for Deontay Johnson? Get out of here. We're ending the pod right now.
Hey, I got to try, right?
Sure, yeah. No, actually, that's fine. Shoot your shot. I like that. But you've got okay. So I guess personally, I like selfishly, I want to know what you're thinking with your pick this year, your first pick. But you don't have to divulge all that. But what's
I mean,
interesting at the top
I've
of the
been,
draft is there's a good running back and a good wide receiver, and
yeah.
you could take that either way with like your strategy. I'm not sure what you're thinking, but
So for me, I kind of mentioned this in the group chat. Landing spot is really going to play a big role in what I do with 1.02. Obviously, if JSN ends up in someplace like Buffalo or KC or someplace with a solid starting quarterback to amazing quarterback, a high flying offense, something like that, where I think he's going to get utilized, that's a big deal. If he ends up in New England, I don't want to touch him,
New
and
England is a tough spot. I think New England is the toughest spot for any fantasy football player. Like if Bijan went there, that's maybe the only landing spot that I would be like, "Whoa, wait a minute, do we really want this guy?"
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but
I
I would
mean,
still pick him if I had the 101. Don't get me wrong, I would 100%. There's no landing spot that could convince me to pick anybody but Bijan at 101 as
and
long as he's healthy.
in all honesty, if I had 1-1, I'd be trading. I probably would be. Like I would, or I at least I don't know if Lewis has because I'm not. I haven't made any overtures towards trying to get it. But or even if I had Lewis's team, and say it wasn't even my team, I had Lewis's team, I'd still be trading him. I just don't think. I mean, he needs a lot of pieces just like I do before he's really competing, and I think you're wasting some of Bijan's prime years. Really this first two or three, building up your team trying to compete when you could trade him and just get just a crap load of stuff for him.
I will
So
offer a counterpoint. I feel like this is a start eight league and you need studs. And it's something that bugs me every day when I, go to my sleeper app and I go, oh, let me look at my team. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's like Brees Hall, Justin Fields, and then a bunch of guys. And like hopefully these guys turn into something, but
yeah,
but maybe not. And in a start the smaller your starting roster, the more important studs are, and it's like there's an interesting dynamic. I feel like you're erring on the like, hey, I don't want to score points. You're bringing that up like, oh, I don't want to score points, but at some point you have to, and you got to start rostering these studs and like
oh yeah,
reap the benefits of having good players on your team. It's just it's a tricky situation with running backs. They do kind of peter out pretty quickly and tend to get hurt a lot, and
hmm
it's a tough situation. But
yeah. Well,
um,
and also like I mean it's down to like with Bijan we were talking if he was in New England you'd consider it kind of a to look for to what we're going to be talking about down the line. Like I think in that mock draft that we're going to be talking about later, I think he ends up in Washington.
gross.
That's also a team where I'm
That's like
like,
second worst, maybe.
yeah, like it's just
One of the gross landing spots. But I mean, still, he's gonna do well.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about your baller wide receiver room. Devontae Smith.
I
I try to own him
do feel
everywhere.
pretty good about them.
Um, and oh, looks like
You have a
and oh,
question?
our chat is now coming through. I guess it wasn't coming through before for me.
Oh, I don't have any menu up with chat, so if there
Okay.
were questions, I missed them.
There's like a top chat option, and it said some messages are visible. Oh, cool. Okay, so yes, I was just trying to talk you into not taking Gibbs. That's what Lewis said. So yes. I
Yeah,
also miss
Gibbs is interesting, but
what?
like I was saying Gibbs is interesting for me. Um, he does make me a little nervous. Like, and I get wide receivers, for instance, in the NFL have been getting lighter and lighter and smaller. Especially this wide receiver class is a prime example. But Gibbs has been a tough one. Like I was, if you talked to me 2 months ago, I probably would have been leaning more Gibbs than JSN. But
So what changed
I
your
don't know.
opinion then? Like the combine was good for Gibbs, right?
Yeah, it's just the more the analytics of running backs and looking at like I saw there was I don't know if it was the Fantasy Footballers podcast or an article I read, but something like they went through the the height and weight of like the top 15 running backs in the NFL this past year, and all but two were over like 215 pounds or something like that, and it just
Yeah,
you know
it's
it's
tough.
just
He's
tough.
like barely 200, right? I think is where
Yeah, and then in the
he
right
rated.
offense, I think he'd be amazing. Like, if he was playing for the obviously the Broncos are not going to be in a position to draft him, but if the Broncos with the offense they're going to be running now had a chance to grab him, well then that is Kamara 2.0, But if he ends up in I don't know, hell, he ends up in Nashville behind Derrick Henry. Is he worth? I mean, could he eventually be worth it? Yeah, and he's going to get some third down snaps probably, but he's not going to be worth the 1.2 at that point. I don't think.
I think Tennessee is a gross offense, so that would not be too exciting. But for either JSN or Gibbs, but anyway,
Yeah,
well, in
no,
this section we want to talk about your team more. So I was about to praise you with all this stuff. So Devontae Smith, awesome, um, and Jameson Williams, I love him too.
could be
Uh,
awesome.
could be awesome, could be nothing. Who knows? But I
Yeah.
think we all know the talent is there. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
Debo. Debo Samuel. He kind of sticks out on your roster. What is Debo? Is he 28? Is that
Something like that. 27, 28.
27, 28 years old?
I think. Yeah, he's definitely another candidate. Very similar to Javante, where
27.
he doesn't really fit the timeline anymore. Um, had a lot more value when I drafted him in our startup than
Was he
I
your
think he
first pick
does right now.
or second pick?
Uh, he might have.
I mean,
He
the
might
year
have been.
before he had was just incredible. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No,
he's an interesting. Like I'm obviously interested in him. I've definitely sent over some Debo trades because like he gets rushing attempts and he's like
at
consistently
least he
involved
used
in
to.
that offense. I mean, he was getting them in the playoffs. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. Do you want to keep this guy or not? It really comes like if you're saying you don't want to compete for 2 years, are you excited about rostering Debo Samuel in 2 years? You know, that's
Not
maybe the
really,
question
and
you have to
it's
ask
just
yourself.
it's one of those things where like I kind of he's a player kind of like Javante, and honestly, and we'll get to Hawkinson, but like it's a similar vein there where I'd really like them to get a couple of games out, and if Debo comes back and then in the upcoming season and is killing it and producing like he did 2 years ago, as he unlike he did last year, he's going to command way more value than he would right now. I got a pretty
You're playing the stock market. So when he starts playing well, I think this is a really interesting
if no,
thing
this
that
is an if.
this
This
is
is
what
an
people
if.
say all the time in Dynasty on Reddit. It's like you gotta wait until the guy's producing well. But then when he's actually producing well, you have to feel comfortable pulling the trigger and be like, hey, here you go. Here's my awesome player. And
Well, like, and for me, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with that now with the rest of my team. Um,
mm,
but like I've had a couple of people approach me about him, even as recently as like 3 days ago, and I'm pretty sure it's a player I can't remember off the top of my head, which means it wasn't somebody that I was excited about, and a fourth round pick. Like,
yeah, not that
that's
exciting.
not exciting. And if I can wait
I feel like I sent over the
four
107
games,
at some point. I'm pretty sure I did.
you you did. So that was something that I considered. I'm just talking about some of the most recent trade I got from somebody.
Anybody who offers a
Um,
fourth, they're yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
annoying
like I
stuff.
said, there was a player in there, but I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. So that's why I'm not just like it wasn't like just terrible, but I'm really trying like if I'm sitting here saying, oh, I want to go after Marvin Harrison Jr. and possibly Caleb Williams, I need first round picks,
Yep.
and that's that's going to be how many first round picks can I accumulate based off my assets? Obviously, AJ Brown got Lewis 2 last year at the startup. I think is that right?
Yeah, but that was before we knew anything. I mean, no offense to
No,
Lewis, but
absolutely. And
that
then there
was
are other
the
players that have
Wii
gone, and
Dynasty hours.
yeah, and obviously there have been other trades that have happened where first round picks are moving, and anything for somebody like Javante or Debo for me, and Hawkinson going forward. And I get that the value has to be there for the other team, but like first round picks are a priority for me. If you're going to come to me with trades, you
Yeah.
need to know that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, okay. So you got your three firsts, right? You got this year's and 24 and 25. You don't have any extra ones right now.
Yeah.
So you're that's what you're looking for to kind of stockpile and get your value to peak at the right time. Now rookies take a while to get going. Sometimes they don't if they're running backs. They start producing right away, but rookie wide receivers typically take at least a year before they start,
Mm-hmm.
giving you like a wide receiver 2 season, at least, unless they're, Justin Jefferson, or somebody like or Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got two building blocks with Devontae Jameson. You could get yourself a JSN or Gibbs with your pick. If you go JSN, then you've got your wide receiver room kind of filled out,
Yeah.
pretty well. And then so we move on to tight ends, which is an interesting spot because you're one of the few people in the league who don't need to worry about tight end. You've got a young tight end that's good, and Hawkinson. He probably commands a lot of value right now, but you have to weigh your options probably of, well, why don't I just keep him because he's
Yeah.
good.
And that's definitely something I've had to consider. Um, I even mentioned it when I guess it was Zach and maybe Walter and some other people. We were all talking the other day, and it's just like he might score too many points for me. I might look up, and it might be a situation where he's scoring well. I'm trying to stay as low as possible, and one of those folks that is really trying to make that push that has a couple of assets to spare, whether it's young players or first round picks. It's going to be a hard decision for me if one of them like that comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you, a first round pick, and two young players, or something like that." That's going to be hard to turn down, especially if I'm trying to shed points, which I could very well see myself doing. And then I'm actually pretty happy, even beyond Hawkinson. I'm pretty happy with my tight ends. Isaiah Likely is somebody that I think I don't. It probably won't be this year. Maybe next year, or when he gets onto a second contract and he's moved to another team. I think he could really break out and be really good. He's shown spurts already in some of his preseason matchups, and when he's been playing spot minutes behind Mark Andrews or as a second tight end when they've been lining up with two. He's a physical freak. So that's something I really like out of tight ends. And then Gesicki is somebody who I've always been a fan of, and
He's a Patriot now, right?
he is,
Oof.
which is a little weird, but they historically have done pretty well with tight ends. If he kind of lines up in that Gronk esque role of a big slot receiver, I think he could actually put up some points. He was getting used like that 2 years ago in Miami, and I can't remember where he finished, but he had a pretty solid season. And I think they changed offensive coordinators this past season, and that whoever's running the offense, I can't remember if their head coach or their offensive coordinator just doesn't use Gesicki. That didn't want to use him that way. But he's basically just a 6'6", 250-pound slot receiver. He's not somebody that's going to be lining up, inside and blocking a lot. So he's somebody I think that could actually score some points in the right situation.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look around him. Would you okay? All right, here's a question for you again. So Javante and Hawkinson are actually valued pretty equally on keep trade cut.
Hmm.
Would you trade TJ Hawkinson for Lamar Jackson in a vacuum?
In a vacuum, yeah. I mean, and I'd say the same with Johnny in a vacuum. But like, if you look at the rest of the aspects that are going around, that's when it gets hard. But I mean, if TJ Hawkinson got me Lamar Jackson, that's that's pretty hard to turn down.
What about like
You know, by
TJ?
stream,
I got another one for you. TJ Hawkinson and TJ Hawkinson and a second for Herbert. Maybe even your second this year.
yeah, I do that.
You could
Be able to
probably
have
you could
Herbert for
probably
the
pull that
next
off on keep trade cut value. You could pull that off.
having Herbert for the next decade, which is probably what it would be for him. Like that dude's a stud. I mean, that's an absolute stud at QB that you just it's set it forget it. You don't have to worry about QB for the next, unless he gets injured. You're not worrying about that for the next 10 years. And I can find a tight end, a serviceable tight end, but in the next 10 years.
There you go.
You know, at that point, it's just all right. I wait until my spot, and I'm trading 3 firsts for whoever is the next Travis Kelce.
Yeah, it's strange, like you think about like a one quarterback league. Typically, people don't value quarterback as highly. You can get away with like a Kirk Cousins and be happy with those points if you're trying to compete. You can make your team stronger in other areas. But our league truly values these top tier quarterbacks very highly. It's like I'd imagine it would be you'd have to pay a lot more than T.J. Hawkinson to get Herbert from Penny. I feel like it'd have to
Oh,
be
absolutely. Yeah.
you'd have to throw a first on top of that, or
I don't. I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he asked me for 2 firsts and Hawkinson, if not more.
yeah, which you're
If
not
he that's
you can't you're
like
not in the
that's
position to do yet, but
yeah, no, which I wouldn't do. But like that would at least be a starting point, and then I'd have to counter offer and work them down and something like that. But like, you know, um, question for you with I know you're in a bunch of rando dynasty leagues, or at least you were.
I am still. I'm in
Would you
three.
see it? Would a trade would Hawkinson for Herbert happen in a one QB league that you're in? Do you think that would?
Um, yeah, I think, and part of it is like we're bigger leagues, like a 14 team league, so it's more scarce. Like the good quarterbacks
Yeah.
are harder to come by. I'm in a 16 team one quarterback league, so yeah, I don't think there either Hawkinson
Oh,
for Herbert would happen, but
do you even look at the waiver wire in that league?
it's
It just
pretty
seems
similar
like
to
that
our
would be
league.
cool.
I mean, so it really just depends on your bench. How many bench players do you have? That's and starters combined, and that league actually has a smaller bench,
Okay.
and so it's a pretty similar waiver wire. I mean, it's pretty gross, like ours is, as any dynasty league should be. You should have a gross waiver wire out there. Um, because everybody should have every player pretty much that's relevant.
Yeah.
But
One aspect of speaking of waiver wire that I started to mention the other day when we were talking with folks. It was when I was bringing up the off-season fab versus in-season fab situation that I think Fantasy Footballers does in one of their dynasty leagues those guys are in. Um, that seemed more interesting to me because they only do a 3 round rookie draft.
mm,
So that off-season fab, you hold on to it until a lot of if you're smart, you hold on to it until you know last pick 3rd round happens, and whenever their waiver wire clicks, a bunch of you just end up scavenging through the rookies, trying to pick up as many lottery tickets as you can at that point, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't think I've spent more than like $10 in Fab in our league, if I remember correctly. I barely looked at our league. Obviously I wasn't trying to compete, so that was part of it. But our waiver wire is just so tight; it's insane.
yeah, it's basically like if anybody's any good, you should just use a lot of your budget
They
on
should
them.
already be rostered.
Yeah. Um, okay. Well, um, Any other thoughts? I feel like either the chat's not updating or we aren't having much action here
I'm
afterwards.
sorry I'm so boring, guys.
No, no, you no, no, no. I got to
Yeah,
give
I
you a
mean,
hard time about
overall,
trades. It's been great. So I guess do you want to go over the mock now? Do you want to
yeah,
spend some time on
we can
that?
definitely do that. I think if I'd summarize it, I'm fairly happy with where I am as a team. Like, and I think it's because it's a long term project. Like, I enjoy that. I guess Lewis is like that too, and other people are. Um, constantly being able to reevaluate where this team is based off injuries, free agency. Like for instance, my running back room looked way different when Darrell Henderson was a starting running back for was it the Rams,
Yep.
and all of a sudden he's just off the team. Like he's not even signed anywhere right now, which to me is wild. Like he's a
He,
1,000 yard rusher in the
he's
right
just an
offense.
injury waiting to happen. Is the problem? He's made of glass.
Yeah, and so that's but like if you talk to me in October and Henderson's going, I've got Williams. Obviously, Pierre Strong's a long shot. Edmonds is old. Scott's ancient. I'm not even sure who Travis Homer is. Like, if you ask me to like tell you who he played for without looking it up, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, he just
Um,
got picked up by somebody. Was it the Bengals?
Maybe
I can't even remember.
I don't know, man.
I don't remember who
Uh,
picked him up. It wasn't the Bengals. It was another team.
Honestly, like Robbie Anderson has supposedly changed his first name. He's
Not
now listed.
supposedly. Yes, he definitely has.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I checked my roster yesterday. Had no clue.
Oh, Travis
Um,
Homer's on the Bears. I just looked
there
it
you
up.
go.
He's on the
So
Bears.
he's buried behind who did they sign?
Herbert
They let
and
Montgomery
Dante
go.
Foreman.
Yeah. Okay. He won't be at any carries.
He's a
He's
pass
worthless.
catcher though, so maybe he gets a
Yeah.
little third down work. All right, so
Yeah.
let's go to this view here and go to the mock draft. So we got the Dane Brugler mock draft.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
gonna. I don't think we should like spend a ton of time on every pick. I mean, we probably can spend like 15 or 20 minutes on this. Um,
yeah, let's talk about the first. So the I'm looking on someone on Reddit was nice enough to on Dynasty FF was that in the comments they listed all of the fantasy relevant picks.
mhm.
Um, so for me, the thing that has stuck out is obviously you get Bryce Young going one, Stroud going two to Houston, which from what I've heard through a lot of the media recently, they aren't trying to take a QB, so that could change. But basically, all four of the quarterbacks that people are talking about, Young, Stroud, go one two. Richardson's going four to the Colts, and then Will Levis at 11 to the Titans. In my mind, it's just bonkers. I, Young and Stroud probably worth a shot, but it is wild that to me these NFL teams are going out there and just rolling a dice like at four on Anthony Richardson. The Colts, well, they're pretty, they're a decent team. I mean, they got Jonathan Taylor. They've got a couple of receivers. Their defense is fairly solid, but you can't tell me there aren't other positions other than quarterback that you could get value out of it for, if not trading out and getting somebody else.
But who are they starting right now? Like if they don't, is it who's their quarterback
But but
if
you're going to tell
Richardson
me that
doesn't
all right?
play?
But Anthony Richardson had like a did he even have a 50% complete or 60% completion rating in college?
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah,
So
it's like
he's ready to start day. That guy's ready to start day one for the Indianapolis Colts with Jonathan Taylor behind him.
yeah. I mean, I think draft capital
And
is going to tell us all we need to know about that. Like he's picked 4 here, right? Like top 5
that's just wild to
quarterback.
me, man.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I mean,
he could be the next Josh Allen, but Josh Allen took 3 or 4 years to be Josh Allen.
I just think if any GM thinks this guy needs to be picked top 5, then they are betting their career completely on this pick.
Exactly, and that's not like I'm just saying. If I were a GM, that's not the bet I'm making.
Yeah.
If I'm the Colts, I'm either trying to trade up to two and at least get Stroud, or I'm not taking a quarterback. Like I'm just,
So your
it's
ranking
just
would it be exactly like for these 4 quarterbacks? Would it be exactly as the mock went? Is that how you'd rank them?
um I definitely like Bryce Young more than I like Stroud. That kid's just been top of the class, number one his entire life. And from what I've seen him play, like I've seen him live, it's wild. Like his vision is insane. He knows where everyone's going to be. And even at his size, he still has a really good arm.
Hmm.
So it's just really like for me, and my question mark for Young is just the fact that like, is he going to be able to hold up? Like, if he goes to the Panthers, they have an okay line. I don't think
They
they're
have a really
amazing.
good offensive line. Actually, I think that's
Yeah.
one of their strong
Okay.
suits.
I was say I don't think they're not terrible. So it's not like a situation where he's just going to get destroyed every time he takes a snap. So in my mind, that makes a lot of sense. Stroud, I mean, very well could end up being like doing really well. I've heard from media and other like just kind of reading up about the kid that I don't think he had a lot of like high level coaching at the position until he got older, and he's still kind of learning the game. If I remember correctly, which is pretty interesting. And he's obviously done really well, but I just haven't seen enough of him. And then Richardson's a freak athlete, and Will Levis to me, while he is what like 6'4", 6'5", like he's prototypical UB size,
Big
has a good
dude,
arm.
big
Dude
arm.
couldn't win. He could not win the starting job at Penn State. Had to transfer out. Had a hot run at Kentucky for 4 or 5 games, and then got found out and just didn't do well. Like I mean, Kentucky had that run going at the beginning of the season, and well, they won like what 6, 7 games and petered out real quick. So for me, like he's not someone that I would if I was drafting for our league, I'm not interested in. If I was an NFL GM, I'm just like eh.
So
So like the QBs are just it's a weird situation. That's why for me, like I'd be waiting. If I was a team in our league that needed a QB, which I obviously am, if I was somebody else though, I'd be looking to 2024. Caleb
I
Williams is a
guess
way better prospect.
let's bring this back to your team. So you've got the 202. You're obviously not taking any of these guys in one QB with your second pick in the
Well,
draft.
I don't think the two that I would roughly take, like Stroud, and I don't think Stroud or Young are going to be there. And so I wouldn't be taking Levis or Richardson at
Okay,
202.
so that was my question. Would you take Anthony Richardson at 202? Is that your
No.
so you're saying no? Okay. I
Yeah,
would.
I wouldn't do
I
that.
would personally take the bet on Anthony Richardson. To me, if this is how it went down, I would have Richardson for fantasy first. Then I would probably have Young, Stroud, Levis as my order. I mean, Levis going to Tennessee is not exciting. Levis going to the Colts, I think, is pretty interesting. I mean, if they give him top 4 draft, number 4 pick overall,
Le-
capital.
Levis is somebody that I think is going to be if he can go somewhere and not start right away, which is hard to do if he's in the top 10. If he's at 11 or later, if he could go sit behind somebody like
Like Tannehill.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if they let him sit behind Tannehill as bad as Tannehill has been recently. But like, for instance, Seattle, like just throwing a team out there that has
Gino.
they just gave Gino his contract. Like they're not gonna draft Levis and start him. But if they drafted Levis later down the line and he got to sit for 2 years behind Gino, I'd feel more comfortable about Levis being a success in the NFL in
Dang.
that
Can you
situation.
imagine drafting a player in like the top 15 or I mean Seattle what would be like what are they like 5th or something like that? They're way up there. 5th. Yeah, they're the 5th pick.
Yeah.
If they
Well, don't they?
drafted
Do they
Will
have
Levis at
Do they
5,
have multiple firsts? They've got multiple firsts though.
they do. They do.
That's the first that 5 is what they have for Denver. I think they have one in like the 20s. Am I crazy?
um maybe. Yeah, they had the 20th pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got
Yeah.
JSN in this
Like if
draft.
all right, if you got Levis at 20 and sat him, which is what used to happen a lot, and people talk. I mean, hell, look at Jordan Love. Like I mean, everything I'm hearing out of Green Bay uh, is people are raving about what he's going to do. Now, could he flop? Absolutely. But like, I mean, that kid's been sitting for what 3, 4 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's
And
been sitting
was he a
behind an
former first round?
MVP quarter. It's not like whoever's drafting Will Levis probably doesn't have an MVP quarterback sitting in front of him. So
That's very fair. That's very fair.
so that's a weird situation. All right, let's talk about Bijan. You didn't like the Commanders' landing spot. I personally don't
Yeah,
either. I don't think it's great, but because it's just not that exciting of an offense with like Sam Howell. Um,
I think it's great for the team's overall stability for the next 5 years, but like from our point of view for fantasy production, I just don't
there are
I don't see
other
it.
better spots, right? You'd be more
Yeah,
excited about. Not
absolutely.
as many touchdown opportunities, but he would definitely get the work. He would get
Yeah,
he would
I
get
think
the
it'd be a lot of carries, and he'd probably put up some numbers, but I just I don't know. I've never been the Commanders have always just been meh in my opinion,
yeah.
even when they were the Redskins. Um, I don't know. Looking through the rest of the first round, that is, fantasy relevant players. Obviously, they've got JSN to the
Oops.
Seahawks, which if I was like, from my perspective, that's a great landing spot. I'd be happy with JSN there. Um, he's got, um, oh crap, I'm blank. Who's their number one? I'm blanking on their number one wide receiver.
DK Metcalf.
He's a, yeah, they DK Metcalf. So obviously DK is going to command a bunch of attention. That's going to allow Jason to not be a double, get a secondary corner as opposed to the primary. Gives him a lot of opportunity. I think that's pretty solid. Um,
Kincaid
Other
to the
folks that
Chargers would be pretty exciting. For
yeah, I don't know a ton about
Herbert.
Kincaid. Is he the kid that started playing football late and used to be a basketball player? Does
Yeah, I
that
don't
sound
know about
familiar?
that history, but he's a big dude who can catch the ball. Like he's not
If I remember,
super duper fast, but he's faster than you think, and
I think
he has really
yeah,
good
I think
hands, runs great routes.
yeah, I think if I remember off the fantasy footballers kind of tight end primer they released this week, it was tied in with their QBs. He played like he's kind of the next Antonio Gates in the sense that didn't start playing football till later in life. Was a power forward or something like that, playing basketball. So he's got a lot of body control and tight space. So that could be really interesting, especially because he's going to the Chargers, where Gates will kind of revolutionize the position in a way. And with Herbert there, I mean, he's going to get the ball's going to be wherever he wants it to be, and he's going to have some options for definitely catching some balls. So I thought that was pretty cool. Zay Flowers is a wide receiver. That dude's just fast and small. And I mean, I know that's what a lot, kind of the way that NFL is supposed to be going, but that kind of trips me out. I'm not. He's one I'm not sold on
But you are sold
overall. I
on
mean, I think he's
Devontae
an incredible
Smith
athlete.
because he's produced skinny Batman.
He's Devontae Smith is skinny, but he's like 6 foot 6'1".
Mm.
So he's got some height. Like Zay Flowers is what 5'9".
Yeah, he's a little more built uh,
Yeah, so
than
he's shorter and
Devontae.
stockier as opposed to being taller and leaner. But I mean, I was saying he's not going to get it. And obviously, Baltimore getting Lamar another weapon is a good idea because that I mean they've got Odell Beckham and then Bateman's shown some promise. Nelson Aguilar is
I still
not
love
that
that
exciting.
video of Nelson Aguilar. Well, of the guy, the it was like during one of the Eagles like playoff runs or something. I'd have to find it where he like saves a kid out of a burning house and like he catches the kid and he's like, I caught him. Unlike Nelson Aguilar, like he was talking to the news. I mean, amazing. Like in the heat of the
Yeah,
moment, that's what he thinks of is
that's the guy you're
Philly
thinking about.
Eagles football. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's what he's known for. He had so many drops, but um,
yeah.
I guess
Jordan Addison obviously goes to the Giants. Um, I was kind of surprised by that pick in that slot, not because I don't think Jordan Addison's not going to be a good footballer. I think he's an excellent receiver. Obviously, won the Blitnikoff at Pitt. Um, but I kind of with Quentin Johnson still on the board, I kind of thought that would be something that the Giants would go after because overall they've got a pretty small wide receiver room, and in my mind, Quentin Johnson being was he like 6'3", 6'4",
yeah,
like that?
I don't know if he measured. I
He's
don't
a
know what he
big he's a
measured.
big
He's
dude that can
tall.
run
He's
fast.
tall. Yeah, Quentin
Yeah,
Johnston's tall.
I mean,
He's a tall dude.
yeah, I thought that would benefit
He's an
that offense more.
prototypical X receiver, right? And
Yeah,
so with Addison, he's not going to be like the physically imposing win the one-on-one matchups. I mean, there's not too many X receivers in this whole class. You've got Quentin Johnston,
yeah,
you've got what Cedric Tillman, and then I'm starting to blank on
yeah.
Mingo. Mingo, I think, is one of them that.
So he's a guy I got to watch. So Jonathan Mingo's an Ole Miss player.
Mhm.
Um, I've watched him play for the last 3 years. That dude's an athlete.
Mm.
Like he's a player. Like it doesn't necessarily even show up necessarily on the numbers, but he's one of those guys that when you put on pads, like I've seen him make some pretty crazy plays. I thought that was he's somebody that I think in the later round could be a winner for a team.
I feel like
Michael
this
Mayer.
Mayer pick right here is solid. I mean, that would really boost his fantasy value right there.
Oh man, no, I think that's a perfect. I think that's the perfect landing spot for a player like him. So Mayer's a guy that like I know I made some comments early or during the college season where he did not win the Mackey Award. That went to Bowers in Georgia, and Bowers is like, and even maybe the Kincaid kid are more exciting fantasy relevant players. But Michael Mayer is the prototypical tight end
Mm-hmm.
for doing this stuff that isn't necessarily going to show up in our league and be exciting. But for the Cowboys, I think he's fantastic. He's going to be. I mean, he's going to obviously get some great throws from Prescott, and be there for the dump routes. And he's somebody that I think would definitely do well there. Quentin
So
Johnson in
Quentin
Texas is
Johnson going to the
exciting.
Texans. All right, got a question for you now. So Giants draft Jordan Addison. Texans get Quentin Johnston. Who are you drafting first? If you are on the board?
If out of those two guys,
Yeah.
ooh. So in this draft they have Stroud going to the Texans, right?
So you got Stroud to Quentin Johnston.
That's pretty exciting. Like that's now, I will say
I'd be much more excited
Addison,
about Stroud to JSN. That would be,
yeah.
but
But like Addison would be in a more developed offense, and I don't really see like there's nobody. I mean, I think they would both end up being the guy. Like there's no guy in New York right now. I think they're really hungry for a wide receiver there, and I might have to go. I think about with all the other issues because like the line at Texas the Houston needs a line. But they do
it's
have a
tough.
running back that yeah, I'd probably go Addison
Yeah,
if I
I
was
would
going.
probably go Addison too, just because draft capital at that point. I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Plus, I just think he's a better football player.
yeah,
Jameer Gibbs to the Cardinals, a dumpster fire team.
yeah. That like if this is how it works out, you're gonna get Gibbs. Like I'd
I
probably
will
think
take him
yeah.
because
Like
James Conner is done for. You know, I can't believe they had him as a top 20 running back. Fantasy footballers did.
man, he's made plays. He's also gotten hurt a lot, but he's made plays.
I would bet against him
Um,
making plays this year, but maybe that's just me.
yeah, Gibson with the Cardinals. I think 3 years down the line, probably really good. I have no idea what that offense is supposed to look. I don't know who they've hired in Arizona as a head coach or for coordinator, so I don't have any idea what that's supposed to look like. Obviously that plays into it. I like if he had been in their old offense with Kingsbury, I think that's pretty exciting. That unknown factor, I think, is what I don't like about that landing spot for him.
All right, so let's do the last few
Hold
pretty
on, there
quickly.
actually is one we skipped over one player that I think is a great landing spot. You just highlighted him, Hendon Hooker to the Seahawks.
Yeah,
If he's going to be successful, I think it's a landing spot like that that'll allow him to do that.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think everybody's projecting that because like Gino was in a pretty similar offense in college, and then he could teach him, how the ropes in the NFL. You could
Mhm.
sit him for a
Oh, and he's
year,
got
and he could learn the ways.
and he's still coming off that it was an ACL that he tore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I no, I like the landing spot too. I don't think he would be drafted super highly in our league. In a one quarterback league, you're probably not picking him very
No.
early. He's probably late second, something like that,
Well,
maybe.
and I mean, he's 25, 26.
He's older, yeah.
Like, what, probably not going to end up being a starting, like, long term starting quarterback. I mean, maybe he has a big career as a backup and filling spots, and he could have a few years where he's good, but I don't think the comps are there for guys that are coming out into the league as old as he is for to be, shocker, level starting, assets, at least on a fantasy perspective. But I think it works out for him.
All right, so we got Hyatt to the Saints with Derek Carr. That could be
He's really fast.
it could be really interesting. Hyatt is a very
I don't
polarizing
think he
player,
does much
though.
else.
I just don't think I just don't know if he can win against press coverage. So I'm not super high on him myself. I probably won't have too many shares of Jalen Hyatt after all my rookie drafts.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Um, Musgrave to the Packers. Kincaid is always mocked to the Packers. Like in almost, I look at so many mocks, and that's where Kincaid goes. But Musgrave going to the Packers could be interesting. Josh Downs, the Patriots. I think I think that's a good pick for the Patriots. I don't know if that's a great pick for Josh Downs' fantasy
Yeah,
career.
I mean, we talked about it earlier. It's just a sinkhole there. I mean, they have. I mean, obviously they've had players that have been amazing, but not consistently. And there have been so many players that people thought would be great that go to the Patriots, and they just don't do. I mean, they work for them, but they don't do anything for fantasy production.
I like Darnell Washington for his athletic tools. So seeing him go to the Lions, if he got some
So
opportunity to actually catch the ball, he's
yeah,
probably going to
supposedly
block a lot. But
he had like the second best combine other than Anthony Richardson in terms of
six
like
seven,
athletic power.
he's a giant of a human.
He's also caught 3 TDs in his entire career.
Right? Yeah. I mean, the tools are there though.
Yeah,
Tucker Kraft is another tight end that people like a lot. Going to the Jags, that would be interesting. Especially, Evan Ingram's kind of holding out on signing the tag. I think. What if he doesn't?
yeah,
Kraft could like immediately jump in. Cedric Tillman to the Bills and Zach Sharp. These two picks are hot right here. Tillman going to the
yeah.
Bills is really, really interesting. That's a
So,
really
so
high powered offense.
question for you. I take JSN, right?
Yeah.
So Charbonnet getting that draft capital. Any interest with him at 1.3 over Gibbs?
Maybe, but I'm pretty excited to, I mean,
Because that's an awesome offense to dump him into.
yeah, but
That's
situations change. I mean, I just like the player, and so I think Gibbs is really special, and with some skills. I think Charbonnet's just solid at a lot of things. I don't think he's like amazing at a lot of things. So he could
yeah,
produce more fantasy points year one, maybe. But yeah, I obviously, I went after DeAndre Swift. Gibbs is a lot like that. This these guys like these really solid athletes. They're exciting to me,
mm-hmm.
and so I just think Gibbs is an amazing pass catcher. I think that's pretty awesome. So, but I think this is one of the big ones to drop even at pick 60 here. Charbonnet, he really boosts his case as at least you know the third running back, maybe like you said, the second running back in this class, if he goes to the Bengals. But I think Tillman going opposite of Diggs, they need to hit on something because they keep trying these guys like Gabe Davis. Was it like Isaiah McKenzie? Like they're drafting these guys and they're just not working out across Diggs. They need someone else to come in and I think Tillman
Yeah.
would be a
Uh,
fantastic pick for them.
Yeah, I honestly thought Gabe Davis was the answer for them, and he petered out this season, didn't really do too much.
Super
Pretty
inconsistent.
disappointing.
He has some
Yeah,
games where he's amazing. So
but I mean,
um,
there's so many wide receivers out there. I mean, just think about Tooney and Sky Moore and all these other guys that are out there that all have speed and hands and talent, and just for whatever reason can't put it together.
yeah, Tyler Scott to Cincinnati is the other one, or not Cincinnati, to Kansas City is the other one. I think anytime a wide receiver gets mocked to the Chiefs, Scott is fast.
Hmm.
That's an interesting pick as
Which fits
well.
their profile with as many people that they've brought in.
Yeah, I like. I think the Bengals. I think Charbonnet. This whole mock, Charbonnet is one of the more exciting landing spots. Um, just going back, like I actually like Quentin Johnson. We talked about this. I actually like Quentin Johnson based on this mock. If they actually get a quarterback, I like and Stroud.
Hmm.
I like that one a lot too. Um, and then Mayer to the Cowboys just feels like Jason Witten all over
Oh,
again,
absolutely.
just all over again. Everything else, JSN to the Seahawks is like in terms of landing spots, it's a good one. It's not a terrible one. It's not the best one, maybe, but it's. I mean,
Would you want to see him with a better quarterback?
yeah,
Absolutely, but I mean,
yeah.
like I said, he'd be getting a lot of good matchups.
Yes, if JSN falls to the Chiefs, yes, I would like that very much. That would be exciting, but that's not happening. But other places he could go, there could be worse places he could go. I mean, even I'm sad to say this, but what if he went to the Bears, pick 9, to Justin Fields? That would definitely
I
be,
don't know, man.
yeah,
That
that could be a
that
good spot.
it could be. I mean, Fields is really developing. Um, they need. I mean,
They got
who else
DJ
do they
Moore,
have? And
they,
they've got
Darnell Mooney, and then
Mooney.
Claypool, and then commitment issues.
There would be a lot of competition for targets. I guess is the one thing about with DJ Moore at least,
There's
and they're obviously
competition
trying to
for
develop
not
Mooney.
too many targets, I guess, is the
Yeah,
volume of targets you're worried about, maybe, with a Justin Fields. But anyway, I think this is an
yeah,
interesting mock. I think it's less egregious than the one we went through before in terms of just craziness. I feel like this is more, to me, it feels more realistic, like the way this mock
yeah.
is going to go.
Well, I think a lot of the mock sites, especially as you get to this point in the draft season, as you would, it's all about clicks, and folks are just they'd rather put out a wild mock that has something to talk about that makes no sense than actually be as realistic as possible. I think that plays a lot into it, and I mean it's all a bunch of nonsense. I mean, every one of these teams has a draft board, and there are all these insiders that think they know what they're talking about, and they've heard things, but it's all going to put. We're going to get to that Thursday night live stream where we're all hanging out, and there's
Chaos.
something that goes down that like just causes chaos,
Complete
absolute chaos.
chaos.
I think the biggest thing is probably Houston trading. I think that's going to be the first domino if they actually do it.
You know what else can
Um,
happen is a Lamar Jackson trade could happen
that too,
on draft night.
which I don't know if that's going to happen, man. Like I mean, I think Lamar Jackson's amazing, and I think he's still got several, some really good years ahead of him. But it really just seems like the NFL is colluding against him at this point.
It
And
is
there's
it
no,
is very sad to see. Very sad to see.
they're just wasting a prime talent, and I mean, it's just like running backs. I mean, they've owners have modified the system and pushed the CBAs, in such a way that they can, these guys that used to be getting these massive contracts and earning tons of money just can't do anymore. Like if you thought about what this draft class would look like, let's go. So it's 20. Let's call it 2007. Back say when we're in college, how many of these running backs would go in the first round?
Yeah,
Like a bunch. A
right.
bunch of these guys would be in the first round, and they'd be making a bunch of money, and then they get that second contract, and they'd be done after that. But like, I mean, Charbonnet in the first round. Who's this short? is it Akai? What's the dude's
A
name?
Chain, Devin A
A
Chain.
Chain.
Yeah,
A Chain first round. I mean Spears first round.
Tajay Spears. Everybody loves Tajay Spears. They,
Oh, I'm interested to see what his pro day looks like. That's going to be now that he's medically cleared to do everything.
I feel like him and Kendra Miller are the two guys that like they're universally loved players
Yeah.
for some reason.
Well, and Miller's an interesting one because everybody was really obsessed with Zach Evans, and no, he's another Ole Miss. Eventually became an Ole Miss guy that I saw play, and couldn't beat Miller out at TCU. Comes down to Ole Miss, can't beat. Is it Judkins? What's that? Is that am I remembering that
Yeah.
correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, that kid is going to be
Really good.
wild in the NFL.
Really
Like
good.
amazing.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if he has Bijan like hype coming out of college in the next couple of years. Because I mean that dude was just running amok in the SEC as a freshman.
All right.
Wild.
Well, I think we need to wrap up. I think we need to get a prediction from you on the Lakers Grizz game coming up, Game 3.
Game 3,
yeah? What's your prediction? If Job, let's assume Job plays. What you
Ja
got?
plays. I think we take the first game in LA. I think we lose game 2 in LA. So we come back 2-2,
Mm-hmm.
and Grizzlies win in 7.
There you hear it now. Grizzlies in 7.
Grizzlies in 7. I think the pace of play and those last few games, there's a bunch of space in between games 1, 2, and 3,
Mm-hmm.
and 4. Not quite back to backs on 5, 6, 7, but I think that's going to catch up with the Lakers. I don't think Rui has it to keep hitting threes at the pace that he's been doing, and I think we're just going to grind it out, and it's just going to be a 2 seed versus
You don't think Rui Hachimura is going to drop 28 again or whatever he did the other night?
He is currently leading the playoffs in 3-point percentage, but the kid shot 29%
Yeah, it
the
is
entire season.
unsustainable, but
It's unsustainable.
the other guys
Now,
should shoot better. But
yeah,
I would throw D'Lo. I'd throw him on the bench. Honestly, if it were me,
I
he's
mean,
been worthless.
now could the Lakers take the series? Absolutely. I'm not sure Ja plays Saturday. And it's really down to I mean, he had no fractures or anything in his hand, which is amazing, but it was already hurt. And I don't know if you haven't watched that clip of him hurting his hand, look at it because your fingers aren't supposed to bend that way.
It looked rough. I saw it. It looked
I,
rough.
I thought he broke a couple of fingers when that happened. Like if that had been me,
You'd
my
broke
hand would be in a
a few
cast right
fingers.
now.
Yeah.
I don't understand how his hand survived that. So, but yeah, if you got any trades sent my way for everybody in the league, I'm interested. I may not answer right away. Just to let you know, if you haven't already done it, Jordan and Lewis will tell you. I'll let you sit on read for a while.
Yep, you sure will. Never change.
Or I'll at least acknowledge it and tell you that I will probably take a long time to think about it. But I'm super excited. I've loved Dynasty. This has been a complete game changer for me for fantasy football. I was kind of getting bored with it. I've been in a league with some friends of mine for 12 years now, that or kids I grew up with. And that league is getting a little stale because it's redraft, and there are some folks that have been opposed to things like Fab and moving to things that would just kind of adjust the league and be a little bit more exciting, and just aren't that into it. So that's kind of sucked. But this has been, the constant attention that this league requires and
you can't
engagement
get
that
away from it. You always got
creates.
a trade offer from somebody
Oh yeah,
or something
well,
to think about.
it keeps the group chat going. Like it could be dead for 6 months, but we're constantly talking, we're constantly going back and forth, we're talking, waiting for things to happen. So it's pretty exciting. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate your push to get us there.
I'm glad it's worked out so far.
Yeah,
And hopefully everybody's cool with another year of Dynasty here. And no rule changes. So
yeah. Are there have there is there anything else you change about the league?
I mean, I would have done super flex, but it would have been annoying.
A little too late to do that
A little
now.
too
And
late to do
it
that.
do you think you could really do that with 14 teams?
You can. It would be annoying in some
Shorter
ways.
benches, I guess.
Um, I mean, the shorter we don't we need to mess with the benches necessarily, but I mean, it just in general starting more players would be fun. To me, just because I like the depth piece. Like I like thinking about opportunities for random players, but those are minor gripes, and I like
Mhm.
how it's set up. I think it's great. I'm really
Yeah.
excited about it. So, but thanks for coming on.
No problem. Man. Thank you for having
Good
me.
luck.
I'm
Good luck
happy
to
to
your.
join if we ever need anybody. Like if you don't want to do one on one and you want a group of people on, hit me up. I
We
will be
will.
happy to participate.
We will, and the NFL draft is next week, so everybody will do a get together, and watch on Thursday night. Maybe
Are we gonna do both nights? We're doing Thursday and Friday. What
we
are we doing?
should do Thursday and Friday night. So I'm
Friday's
down
gonna
for
be a bigger night for us, I think, just because there are gonna be more players that we care about going.
Thursday night. Won't be as exciting, that's for sure. But all
Oh, the
right,
first like 5 picks.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. All right,
awesome.
well, I'll talk to you guys later. It's been real.
Well,